for coming, everyone. And yes, it's lovely to see you. And welcome. It means such a lot to be reading tonight to people in Cape Town, my birth city. And also shout out to friends from the Kent and Sussex Poetry Society who have joined us as well. Delighted to see you. And um, I'm sure that, like any and all writers, you may have experienced this yourself. You may leave your birth country, but it never leaves you. So, as a journalist, I wrote about politics and economics of South Africa. As a journalist, I came to cover elections. As a writer, I came to research my book about freedom fighters I'd been to journalism school with. And of course, I came to see my parents and to look after them in the later years. And of course, I came to see my friends. But whether I was here or there, it was always in my heart. It got into all my novels, my young adult fiction, and of course, my poetry. So, where to start? That is the question. So, I hope to be very organized, but I am not organized. I'm just going to show you, but I will read from this later. This is the book Ballet that Jacques mentioned. And it contains a lot of old photographs of my mother. Its poem itself is called Ballet, and it's got these wonderful old photographs that her, I think her father must have taken them, and her mother must have made all these wonderful costumes. She won a lot of prizes as a ballet dancer as a teenager. So here we go. What I thought I'd start with is, in fact, perhaps unusually, the title poem of my. I'm just looking to see where I start. I know I've a certain amount of time, but I don't want to overrun it. So I've just quickly looked at my watch here, and I'm going to actually do a timer, if you don't mind. I'm just going to put a stopwatch on because that will mean I won't overrun, hopefully. So yes, the book is called "These Are the Things That Are Lost." And this first poem is really about my dad. We have a complex relationship, as you will hear. These are the things that are lost. You make me a hobby horse from a sock and a broomstick. I call it Marmaduke. I have asthma. You build a pool and teach me to swim. A friend gives me ducklings for my birthday. You build them a pond. They prefer the pool. You buy me an old saddle at auction and wedge it high in the fig tree. With sticky knees, I gallop across the plains of Wyoming. You film me riding flat out at a gymkhana in Super 8. Years later, films are lost, but I remember I won that day. My mother's back seizes up as she lies on my bed, hearing my history homework. You carry her tenderly to bed in your arms. My boyfriend Joe has long hair and a motorbike. He goes to Cram College. He's a vegetarian and part-time nudist. You do not approve of Joe. You come home drunk and shouting, my friend Barbara is taking a bath. You bang on the door. I don't care who's in the fucking bathroom. I bring home a much older boyfriend. He should be married with 3 children by now. It would be a great deal more awkward if he was, I say. I marry and leave South Africa to work abroad. You're taking the chicken run. You visit often. You take up British residence. You should take the 6 million chips off your shoulder, you tell my husband. He says nothing, for what is there that can possibly be said? You grow older, more fearful and angrier. Ring me every morning in case I've died. I speak to you last on FaceTime on the iPad I gave you for your 90th. Got to go, you shout, angling it so I can see your white stubbled chin and your nostrils. My friends are here. I'll speak to you at the weekend. These are the things that I've lost. So growing up in South Africa, I was sort of the height of the apartheid system. Some of us left, some of us remained. Barbara was a mix of the two, I think. She came over and then came back and did some very important work while she was here. So, in fact, one of the poems I want to read to you was actually in my book Class of 79, which is about freedom fighters. I know this appears back to front, so it's not very good. And it's called The Baize Door. And it kind of encapsulates what life was like for white children at that time. The baize door, faded green, rubbed, velvety, warm. On one side, the new wall-to-wall. On the other, the linoleum was worn. At the jingling of the brass bell, with a thwack of the flapping door, Out came beauty, forehead damp, apron skew, oval platter, high with food. We sat, majestical children, swathed in linen. Our backs were straight. We did not clear, we did not make beds, we did not know where the soap was kept, or the clean sheets. The pool sparkled, the trees did not shed their leaves. So after that, I would like to read you another childhood poem, which is about, well, about me, really. It's called Each Night I Lay Alone in the Dark. My teddy bear, my giraffe, my lion, my elephant, cuddled all around me at night, the way my parents would tuck me in so tight I couldn't move, and I felt swaddled and safe. Later, the gasping waking, my mother watching by the window, crossing swiftly to the bed, the doctor with his long needle, the syringe big enough for a horse, which hurt like a kick to the head. And then, slowly, my breath returning to me, oxygen like Fanta, sweet, sweet, sweet. My sterile room, linoleum cold on the floor, blinds pulled at the bay window, plastic-wrapped mattress, toys and clothes banned to the cupboard in the hall. The rescue kittens were given away. The dogs lived behind the green baize door. Each night I lay alone in the dark, breathing, and never felt safe again. So here is a poem for someone I think who may end up having to watch the recording. Fee, very, very long-term best friend from age 6 when we started school together. We used to go to Nature's Valley on holiday together, but sadly her mother died very early at 53, breast cancer. And so this is called Nature's Valley. Spark struck, match lit, gas burner flares, cabin in the green high wood, the sea hushing so. It was Nature's Valley. It was our heaven, best friends at 10. Free until dinner time, until your mother called, we ran. Now, free until dinner time, until you call, your children run, and in the dark, half dark, she stands unseen. As the spark strikes, match lights, gas burner flares, in the cabin, in the green high wood, with the sea hushing so, and then goes. This poem is about another childhood friend, and again, very sadly in her 30s, she died of leukemia, and something that came to me while I was with my own daughter. Combing. It is morning, and I am combing my daughter's hair. She likes it parted just so, and neatly tied. Her head is bowed, she is quiet for once. I take great care, trying to make the parting straight, one bunch each side. Today my hand is trembling, I cannot do it right. Mary Jane used to stand just so, and I, her friend, part the wavy hair, struggling with the wayward weft of it. Her head was bowed, she was quiet for once. I took great care, made that awkward parting straight, one bunch each side. So must her own mother have sat, the small child quiet between her knees, the parting almost right. One of the things I hated most about my childhood was that, and a kind of awful devil's bargain. My mother, who was, as you know, I've said it already, was a wonderful ballet dancer in her youth, wanted me to be a wonderful ballet dancer. I hated it and I was rubbish at it. But the bargain was I went twice a week to the university ballet school and I got one ride on the Saturday, which I thought was rubbish. But this is what I based the book on. So I'm going to, let's read off the back of that. So that was, that's my mother, but me, not so good. I knew what they meant. I knew why I was meant to try. I'd study myself in the mirror before I left. I looked as if I could do it. The black leotard, pink tights, the bun, that ridiculous pink elastic waistband. I loved the music, but I couldn't dance. My ankles wobbled. My mother frowned at the side of the hall. I've learned since there are some things you can fake. Blondness, wit, intelligence, marriage. Ballet isn't one of them. So happily I was able to, eventually the ballet teacher came to my mother and said, it would be a kindness to let Janice give up ballet. And my mother said, well, why? She said, because she's got weak ankles and it's very difficult for her. Now, as far as I know, I don't actually have weak ankles, but I'm forever grateful to this teacher who freed me from the terribleness of it. So we briefly returned to South Africa not long after Mandela's release. I got in trouble by writing about the process, by writing a piece for The Guardian that went all over South Africa, which I won't bore you with. But I was pregnant with her for 9 months, which is how long it takes. And so my daughter was born there. But unfortunately, things didn't go all that well to start with. So this is called Blouberg, which is where we stayed. It was an all-white wind. It scoured our faces clean. In the house with the big windows, I watched the mountain, watched the sea as it came and went, watched the wind, waited for news. Wept in the big bathroom, I and my growing belly, walked the gauntlet of the neighbours' houses. We heard about your little trouble. Have you had any news? Mourned my independence, wished her more when she came. Shortly after that, we ended up in the depths of Idaho with 14 feet of snow. And that wasn't all the badness that was there. It was very beautiful. It was like Ansel Adams out of every window. My husband will agree that he had a moment of madness, which I went along with, and we went to live with his brother and family. But as the Californians who go to Idaho say, you can't eat the snow. So this is called My Own Private Idaho, after the Gus Van Sant film. The frozen lake, the frost-rimed pines, the clear blue skies were far from home. The power failed, the heat flew out, the stars were cold. Our cabin crouched beneath the pines. The baby cried. The Mormons came to pray for us and chop our wood. The baby cried. I tried to find warmth in our small home and care in the world, but by the lake a swastika flew. A skinhead shot 2 lovers, white hand clasping round. The baby cried. We could not stay, we knew. In fact, that's kind of appropriate at the moment because of Trump being in for a second time, unbelievably. But this guy, yes, had a big encampment locally. So having left South Africa during apartheid, having come to Britain, then having found ourselves there, my boss at The Guardian here said it's a really strange place to end up for the next South African. And I said, why? And he said, you'll find out. But he did tell me, he relented and told me he'd been flown to interview this guy, the head of the Aryan nation. So I was happy to leave and come back to rainy old Britain. One Christmas here, just to get back to Britain, we had 3 of us. So my daughter couldn't join us, the son, grown-up son. And this is what happened at Christmas. It was a lovely, lovely Christmas, but it might not have been. It's called The Lights Go Out. The lights and heat go out on Christmas Eve. The pretty tree goes dark, but our son fashions plates of melting candles, lights the wood-fired stove. The roasting duck explodes and is delicious. It will take 10 days to have a hot shower, but because he's with us and because we go to parties in towns that have light and charge our phones and drink mulled wine and laugh, because we go to friends whose first grandson has been born and lies blinking in their arms, because we once, too, long ago, had a baby boy. We were happy. One of the prices of leaving your country, as I'm sure those here would agree, however long you leave, is missing your parents. Now, I was lucky because my parents actually eventually had a flat in London and came back and forth. My father had a business here. So I was lucky in that sense. But of course, as they grew older, things became more difficult. So my mother had dementia towards the end of her life, which was heartbreaking because my sister and I went to see her, and at one point we used to go separately because we both worked full time, so we'd try and separate it out so she had more time with us. But we went together and we were sitting with her, and she told us that she had 2 daughters in England, but they never came to see her, and we were sitting with her. So really heartbreaking. But there were times that she recognized us. So we cleared her house once she'd moved up into the frail care at the care home at Harriman. This was sort of a complex. And my dad obviously was still in the cottage. So this is called Silk Shirtwaisted. Silk shirtwasters from Paris. Clearing clogged cupboards and dusty shelves among the broken makeup compacts and the wisps of cotton wool, we found bright silk shirtwasters from Paris, a heavy gold chain, a string of dark amber beads, mother of pearl opera glasses, an etched scarab in its polished wooden box, and a notebook that held a single line, Alzheimer's is an inflammatory disease. The thought that she knew about her condition, at least at the beginning, was heartbreaking. And this is called Lynn in a Box. As she, I flew out a couple of times, literally overnight. I had a wonderful boss, luckily here, who just said go. And the second time, she actually died half an hour after I got there. And the usual things happened. And this is called Lynn in a Box. This is Lynn in a box. Everything that counts has been neatly excised. The fierceness, the grey eyes, the fine swing of her clothes, the anger, the hard, hard love in her fine hands. She wouldn't let it go. Now we have let her go, the fine grey ash, less than you would think for a woman of that fineness, less than you would think for a woman of that fierceness. Less altogether, but fine, grey, fine cut, finely felt, and delicately raining on us, on the unsteady old man holding the box over the cliff's edge, and on the two daughters holding on to him, one with her thumbs tucked firmly into his belt, and into the turquoise sea below, swinging with the tide's suck and the kelp's tug, 5 fathoms deep, to where the whales sleep. So once she had died so quickly after I arrived, I sat with her. I'm a Buddhist, so I wanted to chant with her body. And this one is called They Tried to Take Your Body Away. They tried to take your body away, but I wouldn't have it. I sat with you and dreamed of the life you might have had. For you, I made a prima ballerina with a world career. I gave you us, of course, your daughters, happier and freer, and yes, more loving, less impatient than we had been with you. To you, I gave the same beauty and grace, but you were strong and free with it. You had such spirit. You taught us never to take any crap. Life is too short, you said, and laughed. Sometimes you were away when we were small, and we saw you on our TV screen, flying in grand jeté and still in arabesque. The stage held you in a golden frame. When we went to see you with our dad, you were like a doll far down there, bowing as bouquets rained on the stage. We went backstage, and you cried, holding us close, your body strung and trembling, smelling of sweat and rosin, and you whispered how you loved us. But we could feel the power of your dream, how you were there but not there, and selfishly we wanted you back. We did not care about your ballet. I came round in that cold, small room with the photographs of teenage you dancing all around the walls, and for the first time, I wept. So, that is South Africa. And my mother, who obviously I loved dearly and missed, and I think that is one of the most difficult things in my life was when she died. In England, one of the worst things that happened to all of us was the fact that my sister's husband died very suddenly 2 years ago. And this poem is called That First Day, the Woodpecker, for my sister on the death of her husband. That first day, a woodpecker knocks secretly beneath the thick trunks, and you can't see it though you look. Cowslips fling their yellow quilt across the field where he ran his crazy dog. A cuckoo runs in the horse-loud yard. In the woods, the trees show you their tiny, aching leaves. Stumps, clean-cut, sober, point their pale faces at the sky. The fucking birds won't stop singing. By the path, armies of imperious bluebells insist you look at them. You go out across the shining stream. The mud grabs at your clumsy feet. You know you will have to pick it up. You know you will have to pick up this weight, but you don't know how. When you get home, the key rings in the quiet lock. A single swallow washes her wings on the wire in front of the house, tilting first one way, then the other. So a kind of theme of mine in terms of fiction and non-fiction, and my PhD at Goldsmiths in creative writing, the thesis is about domestic violence in literature and how it actually has affected society and even law change. So this is another poem called Mugabe. Famine starts at the heart of a man. There is an absence there, a hole no one can fill. And yet he does not look ill. His thinness is invisible. So too the swollen belly, the navel that protrudes, grey skin, huge eyes, all in a military disguise, giving the salute to crowds who approve at the head of the motorcade, in a family near you. The star of the opposition is what men like him believe, whether they are dictators of countries or semi-detached in leads. To follow that theme, this was from a poetry workshop where we were asked to write a malediction. We started by writing about a politician we didn't like. Strangely, we all agreed on politician. But then we were asked to write one of our own, and this is called Malediction. He is the hollow cast-off skin of a puff adder that crushes beneath your fingers. He is the promise of a storm, black sky with holding thunder. He is your view from the beach, a giant blue wall of wave with a shark in it. He is what remained in the air when the Twin Towers fell. He is the Casper that shot its hard shell path through every township. He is the absence of a warming fire. He is the last place you want to be. He is the last person you want to see. You wait. And this one is called Body Blow. I have absorbed them all. Where other people are kissed, I am a repository for the fist. My body is a bruise. I have nothing to lose, nothing to gain. I have absorbed them all, like rain. That is going to be the frontispiece of the novel that I've just finished. And this is another poem on the same theme. This is the poem in which I left you. This is the poem in which I am still alive. This is the poem in which I left you. The white gate clicked softly shut behind me. A yew tree hung low over the driveway. Your dog came running. Jump in, I said, and opened the door. The cat in her basket on the back seat trilled a welcome. The car hummed over the speed bumps. The horses in their field whinnied to each other. She's leaving, she's leaving, she's leaving. My horse was already gone, already unloaded from a clean trailer and led into a clean stable, safe. Nobody dragged me back through the gate. Nobody cracked my head between the door and the jam. It is the poem in which I had already started the car and driven away. It is a poem in which I am still alive. One of the other things that happened in my sort of midlife, if you like, in England, is something that happened to a lot of people. I got breast cancer, which I'm still here 11 years on, so that's a good thing. And this is called Exit Wound, written when I went with my youngest to Paris after I'd finished all my treatment. My youngest is now non-binary, and they're called Max. You want someone to look at it and gasp. You want someone else to feel it. You want someone to cry. You wish you could. Your youngest helps you most. Your nipple is suppurating in Paris while you carefully press gauze on it in the hotel bathroom. They calmly Google radiotherapy after effects on the hotel bed. It's quite normal, Mum. It'll stop soon. They like the faint scar on your breast. It looks like a sea creature. Wants you to get a tattoo to join the ink dots that mapped where the rays healed your exit wound. And they get it. They fold their long self around the quiet groan you'd hoped they wouldn't hear. Hold you hard. They're not going anywhere. I'm just checking my time. So we now get a section if I read, I always call love and not love. But I'm going to start with love, I think. Okay, it's called this poem is called Rain and Men, which some of you might recognize as a song title. 1. I was soaked to the skin. You gave me a towel and bourbon in a glass that held a charge for my wet fingers that touched yours. Jim Beam and you, slick South London streets, and me, soaked to the skin I loved being in. 2. Wipers sang on the windscreen in wild Cape rain. We held hands as you drove. You said you loved the rain. I loved the car because you were in it. 3. We climbed the locust tree and sat in the forked branch, our round fingers laced. Holding our breath, we could hear the grown-ups looking for us. The rain tapped quick nails on the shiny, dark green leaves. We bumped noses and called it a kiss. And this is another one based on my childhood. My sister had a best friend, and she had a little brother who was my age. Sometimes I'd go along when she went round there, and I think he was the son of the British consulate. But it's a long time ago. It's called Seven. We climbed trees together. He taught me how to box. He gave me a silver bracelet, which I lost. I gave him a James Bond lighter, which broke first try. We had high tea with his mum. We climbed higher and higher. He went back to England. He wrote, and I did too. I thought about him a lot. Then I was 22, and I'd forgotten how we'd climbed trees together, and he'd taught me how to box. And he'd given me my first love, which I'd lost. But sometimes things don't. They end for other reasons. And this one is called Things Are Going Well. I thought I would write to you and say that things are going well. It's snowing like a fairy tale. You couldn't even tell. And I thought I could say that it was a good thing it happened this way, and that I didn't mind, and that by saying what you said, you were being kind, that really we're much better just as friends, and that in any case I have my work, as I'm soon to be a famous writer on tour, and soon I will hardly remember you. You will fade like the chimera you were, and as Mephistopheles said, why, this is hell, nor am I out of it. So to end this section, a kind of happy one called Learning to Fly. My company flew me flew all of us to New York, where we had a party. We did a bit of work, but we basically had a party and did some shopping, and it was great. And that was just before Christmas, 99. Learning to fly. We were learning to fly at the World Trade Center. We were given a bumpy ride. We flew in over the towers. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. We held onto our seats and laughed as the cinema shook. Rode down in the elevator, went to Barnes and Noble for books. We were learning to fly. We had the day free. Our driver thought we were lovers. We bought flowers and presents and tea. I shopped in Fifth Avenue, danced with you, slept alone. Still remember the sun on the top of the towers, the shimmering sea, the Empire State Building. Impossibility, me. I thought what I'd like to do is read a few new poems. They're not in the book, or they might in the final editing get into the book. I don't know, possibly. But it's still in editing. So this is something I wrote quite recently, and I've read it a couple of times. And I know a few of you who will completely recognize what's happening here, because I have a wonderful mother, but she used to worry a lot, something I have inherited from her. But when I came back from South Africa, it was with a 3-month-old and a 2-year-old. And I came up on my own, and the journey was a nightmare. And I was coming back to a house where there was no electricity or telephone, because our tenant had not only defrauded us, but had defrauded the banks for a lot of money. Now, the law had caught up with him. He has been caught. But I had people knocking on my door saying, are you Mrs. Brodie? And I was saying, no, I'm not Mrs. Brodie. If you find Mr. Brodie, let me know. And we exchanged cards. But my mother was a bit worried about me being on my own, which I was not at all worried about. Just glad to be home. I've made a list of things for you to worry about, says my mother. And I listen and laugh and tell her that before she rang, thanks very much, I was fine, and somehow it makes me love her more, because she prays for us children and grandchildren every day and during all important appointments and exams, always making allowance for the time difference. And she knows none of us believe. But that doesn't stop her from slipping us the odd book of Christian essays, because some of the things she worries about are really wild. But she is wise and knows us, and 6,000 miles are nothing to her, because she makes lists before she rings us, and despite taking all possible care over timing, often the landline rings in the middle of a crisis. A child has broken an arm falling off the slide, the Labrador has eaten eggs and is allergic and must be rushed to the vet right now, because she's always apologetic, as if it is her fault, which of course it isn't, because we know she will go and pray for the child or the dog, making allowance for the time difference, because when I had my son, she prayed for me for the 22 hours I was in labour, and she was the first person my husband rang, but not before he stood over my exhausted, shining face and our son in my arms and told me I must decide right now on a name for my shortest, as he had to ring her. And because that is why he's Dominic and not Benedict or Lucian after the painter. And because one day he told me he really likes his name. And because somehow I know that is down to him too. So I mentioned that Mum actually had dementia towards the end of her life. And it really did. It just took her, and it was hard to see. And it must have been terrifying for her. This is a memory from childhood when we used to go down Friday afternoon and I would get 30 cents to go and buy a book and she would go and have her hair done across the road in Rondebosch. Her hair was coloured, this is called Red Nails and Red Lips. Her hair was coloured ash blonde every fortnight at the hairdresser, curls flipped up at the ends, her nails and lips scarlet, her form slim, her heels high. The Italian sports car roared as she put her foot down. Men tooted as she passed them on Duval Drive. She was sex on a stick, said a jealous friend. Later, her hair iron grey, expertly cut, still stylish, her chin high in a ballet dancer's attitude, her elder daughter carefully cut and painted, those oval nails the same scarlet. But we swapped a rose balm for the lipstick that these days strayed from her beautiful wide mouth. Still, her love held its shape, and so did ours. So to end the section, or does it? My mother was very religious, and she had a great relationship with the vicar in Hermanus. And I think he rather liked her. She absolutely adored him. He was one of those vicars that women tended to fall in love with. And this is called Making the Vicar Blush. My mother, that is, not me. He came to sit with her every week in her neat room, with the William Morris curtains and the ballet trophies dancing on the shelves. God loves you, Lynn, I heard him say. Once, when I was there, he sang The Lord is my shepherd in his rich baritone, holding her hand in both of his, gazing into her faded blue eyes. She and I were both transfixed. He finished, the silence rushed back in, and we found none of us could speak. Recognizing him at last, she said, James, you are the most marvellous man. And his young, handsome face blushed beet to the roots of his pale brown hair. He loves me, you know, she told me once he'd left. God or James? I could not know and would not ask. And finally, for this section, because it does include my mother, it's called Packing for England. You can't take the mountain, even though it has corners and a rectangular name and is right there in your own backyard where it's always been. You can't take your mother, her slight dancer form, scent of Van Cleef and apples, strong thin arms, pearlescent tears. Your wire-haired dog died years ago. The smell of bougainvillea and chlorine by the pool won't travel. Instead, you pack your mother's taupe pashmina, smelling of her longing, rolled into a tube in the corner of the leather case. Finally, from the mantelpiece in your old bedroom, the chestnut china horse wrapped in your hopes and your own longing for the new. So I wanted to finish with a few nature poems. They're nature and not nature, of course. And returning to horses. This is obviously not as good as Edmund Muir, but this is called For the Horse, and the horse was called Obi-Wan Kenobi. And originally, I used to call a poem for Obi, but people got so confused and started talking about Star Wars, so which I'm not interested in. So I thought I'd call it For the Horse. For the horse who saw 4 deer in the green wheat, whose eyes locked with theirs, steady beneath unwavering ears, who broke to run, but swung to face them again with a roar from his heart, who turned and paced in piaffe, tail high, neck a sprung curve, faced them, roared again, who all the while were watching, silent, standing breast high in the green wheat. I stood by with his feed and his halter. He brushed me aside, stood at the hedge's height, below the purple foxgloves, breathing like a lion. So I thought he would, like them, clear 8 feet at a bound, would join the silent, waiting four, who stood and walked and stood again. Even when they had gone, swiftly, silently, effaced into the places that deer go, he would not eat, tore at his food, knocked his bucket flying, looked and looked again into the space where they had stood, watching, his heart wild under his thin hide, and that lion's breath at the edge of his breathing. So, more deer. There are so many around us here where we live. But the thing about this poem is that Ella Frears, who read to us a couple of months ago, she's a wonderful poet I'd encourage you to look up. She created a completely new form of poetry, and it's called Desire, the Desire Line Poem. And you have a line down the middle, which is the desire line, but the poem needs to read from left to right as well. So you're just going to have to imagine the structure, but the desire line is: the stag stepped from the shadowed wood and caught the sun in his antlers. We rode out on the sunlit heather purple heath and turned for home. The stag stood sudden, silhouetted, as he stepped out from the trees into the path from nowhere to right here. The horse froze, staring at the black backlit form. Would he run? Should we? Shadowed thoughts raced through us both, the wood no longer clean and empty, but full of his rough coat and split hooves, soft muzzle, weak. We were alike, caught in his deep gaze, the stately turn of head, the moment's pause, the bright sun a dazzle on our faces, wonder running in our anxious veins, and oh, the beauty of his crowned head, the gift of his antlers like a benison. So this was something we saw in the woods while riding out together. There wasn't a mark on him. We could hear the buzzard crying for her mate. We could see him lying in the stony path, still and beautiful in his brown and grey livery, his eye white where something had already had it out. The green swags of June hung off the trees, and she passed between them again and again, with her wings silent and her voice raw. Our horses uneasy, looking away, and he lay quietly, his struggle done, as we stood and we thought how we might one day again see that piece on the other who had gone. Now, I managed to write a COVID poem before COVID happened. This was written in 2019. And when I look back, I realized it has, I suppose, resonance in a way. And I think you're hoping you might agree with me. It's called How Glorious It Is to Repeat Things. To note year after year how the small buds begin of the 5-pointed, pale pink and red tip blossoms of the Japanese dogwood that stands in your garden, the gift of your friend. How the lilac raises its cushiony, scented head from the twiggy confusion of privet and takes its place in the world. How the swallows come, shy one year, bold the next, to spin their web over the garden, dark beneath the flight trails, how they squawk with their chicks in the beams of the stables and come by so close in their hunting that their wings almost brush your cheek. And when you can't know for sure if you will see it again, and how can any of us know? The spring, every gold-studded dandelion in the daisied grass, each time the dog sits close, or the cat complains until you pick her up, or when the old horse wickers low for his pleasure of seeing you, when you see again a face you love, how glorious it is to repeat things. Great. And I'd like to finish with I'd like to dedicate this in some ways to my birth country, because you'll see, it's called Gone to Seed. You say it like it's a bad thing, but those silken grasses that willow and weave beneath the wind, they are sowing their own selves back into the black earth. They have made more of more. They are reaping what they sow and sowing it once more. The lion's breath of the breeze whispers through the hawk-high grass. The field mice and the rabbits live secretly and lushly beneath it. The horses wade through it, and at its edges, the trees bend their heads to admire it, telling each other quietly, "Can you see what they've done here? Can you see what we've done here? What we are is beautiful and full and kind and expansive. What we will do is even better. We have gone to seed, and the world will reap what we sow." Thank you.
Oh, Janice, thank you so much for that.
It's a pleasure. I enjoyed reading to you all. And it's always good to read and to hear your own words, which actually can give you tips on what you might change. But also, it generally is quite something that I do enjoy.
Well, it was wonderful to hear that accumulation of
Yeah,
images and poems, and it was lovely to hear you end on such an affirming note.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Really, really beautiful, and I really look forward to reading the entire collection.
Thank you.
And clearly, you on a roll, and you know, already working on.
Yes, I hope so. I've certainly started a new like it's just a word file, but I'm putting a few poems in there, and I think I'm going to call it "I've made a list of things for you to worry about." I really like that title. Yes, I could tell you a few of the things that were. She would send us letters saying, "Don't buy Israeli oranges," and that was because people were injecting them with poison. Somebody was, I don't know why. John West salmon, don't buy John West salmon. She would find all the things that she could read about in South Africa that were happening in Britain that could possibly be dangerous to her precious children. I know. This was a bit wild when we read the letters. Of course, no emails then.
Yeah. This is where I normally hand over the controls for the evening. I don't know if Ed is in the room to take over sort of question time and hearing what questions people have to ask.
I'm here, Jacques.
Good. That's reassuring. Well, can we put our hands together for Janice, just to show our appreciation for that wonderful reading?
Thank you.
Hope we hear you many times more.
Thank you so much. Can I be very rude, because some people obviously are showing and some not showing? Is the Fiona that's showing, is that Fee Powery? Because I know she was going to try and come. She'd have to unmute first to let me know. No, but I'll find out. I know she wanted to, and she, of course, she was in one of my poems too. So I wanted to. It was sort of a tribute to her and to her mum. But I'm very happy to answer questions if anyone has any.
Just to interject, it can be comments, observations. It doesn't have to be a specific question. and you can raise actual hand or a virtual hand. Jacques, your hand is up.
So what struck me, this sort of hearing the poems together, is just how is what I really felt. Let me try that sentence again. Is that compulsion in you to look at the world, and I'm particularly thinking of that poem, The First Day, where you're trying to see the world through your sister's eyes, and what she sees, is hurting her, and when I feel that it's hurting you sometimes to look at the world, but there's something in the world that insists on being looked at.
Yeah.
So I love, I love that. I love that in your work, that you feel that strong desire to look and to describe what you see, even if it's painful. And I wondered if you wanted to say something about what it is that compels you to write. Is it something that comes on you slowly, or is it something that happens quickly? And is it something that you is it something that is sort of fairly steady, or is it unpredictable and it comes suddenly and goes suddenly and you don't know where it comes from or where it went?
Well, I definitely do go through sort of fallow periods, and sometimes those are like well, a while ago now, but I had 2 deadlines for 2 books, so 2 advances, which was very nice, but 2 deadlines for 2 books, which were almost simultaneous, and I was working full time, so I was working evenings, weekends, and all my holidays. Wasn't really writing poems then. Had some ideas which I jotted down, but on the whole. As long as I'm free, it comes. Even when I'm not really free, it sort of will come through. I am a jotter down. I use my notes on my iPhone. I tape myself. That poem, that First Day of the Woodpecker, was written while I was riding a lovely old piebald cob through the woods just behind us here in the spring. Titcher just died, and I was I just recorded myself. So then when I got back, but I recorded myself. It's actually a wonderful thing called Otter, which is an app which will not only record you but also transcribe you immediately. It's fantastic for meetings and that kind of thing, or interviews as a journalist. So I did. I was stopping, and the horse was very patient with me. So often when I'm riding is a top time for me to write. Actually, I find it frees the mind, clears the mind, and things come. So I will often stop during a ride, either to just dictate a note or type something in. And I used to carry a notebook when there were no smartphones. And a friend who lives up the track here found me. My horse was grazing and I was scribbling away, and she stopped her car and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just writing a poem." So she's an artist, so she kind of understands, but obviously she couldn't, paint in her oils while riding. So it's something that is constantly in my life, and I think the more I write, the more ideas come. I find sometimes things go a bit quiet, but on the whole, and being out in nature, as I'm surrounded by here, is very helpful.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad I asked. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacques. Thank you, Janice, for that reply. I could come in now. I could ask a question later, but I don't see any hands. So, okay, I don't really have a question as such. Just a couple of things that ran through my mind, Janice. I love the sequence of your reading. It was really thoughtful and it flowed beautifully. And I also really appreciate it that you don't shy away from difficult aspects of human nature or our characters, our natures. And I think the thing that struck me as well, very much struck me, is the specificity in your writing. The details are always very, very specific, and a lot of the poems derive their power from that, I think, and from the poems that tackle the difficult stuff. I don't know. I mean, I have many favorites, but yeah, I don't know if you want to respond to that, or if there's anything that comes to mind regarding
Well,
those.
no, thank you so much. I mean, actually, I did try and make it flow. Obviously, I had to leave as many as I put in, and that's itself is a very good exercise, actually. And yes, I was a bit worried about all the swear words, but I thought, no, they'll be fine with them, because I've read a lot of these poems all over the place, and no one really minds a few sort of facts and that kind of thing anymore. But I'll tell you that the poem I opened with, These Are the Things We Have Lost, about my father, he was a difficult grandfather as well. You know, like everyone, he had good parts and bad parts. But my nephew, who's 40, he's called Tom Walker. He's an award-winning documentary maker, but before that, he worked for Channel 4, and he was in anywhere in the world where there was shit going down. That's where Tom was, because he was a producer. So all the people you'd see, Matt Fry and so on the screen, Tom would be the one who'd organise the interview, got the interviewees, standing with the cameraman. So he lived a difficult life. He's in many ways a tough guy, also a sweetie. I sent him that poem, and he rang me. And he said it made him cry. He said, I got to the end and I burst into tears, Jan, because he felt it kind of captured George, my dad, because he'd given Tom a hard time, a really hard time, despite the fact that he was such an amazing guy and a successful guy as well. So I find that interesting, that, yeah, what you said. So that's kind of weirdly slightly off kilter response, but I've had a lot of pleasure from family, you know, as well as a wider audience. And I do like to be specific, and I do like to sort of hone in, and go for the difficult as well as the pleasurable. So thank you for that question or comment.
Very welcome. It turned into a question because, yeah. Anyway, I don't know if there's anyone else who'd like to ask Janice a question. Okay.
I just like to comment. I don't know how to give a hand. I am the fee Powery that Janice is looking for. And it's been wonderful to listen to her leading us through our lives. So much of what she puts into her poetry is life.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Fee. You've nearly made me cry now, never mind Tom. But thank you for that comment. And thank you for coming. That's so great. Yeah. Very important and precious people are here tonight for me, so that's great. It meant a lot.
Thank you, Fiona. Jacques, you've got a hand up. I'm not sure if that's an old hand or a new hand.
I forget now. Am I muted now?
You are unmuted now.
Unmuted now.
I can hear you. We can hear you. No. Well, there you go. You're
Okay.
back.
Okay. So yeah, I forget sometimes which I am, but an obvious question maybe, but poets who particularly inspire you, or that you go to again and again for inspiration, or or solace, or just for pure joy of it.
Yes. Well, it sort of changes quite a lot because of the joy of belonging to this poetry society. We have these workshops, we have these readings, so constantly meeting poets that are new to me. So things change. But as a young person, even a teenager, I loved Louis MacNeice in particular. I loved Ted Hughes for his nature poetry, and I loved the the classics, if you like, Yeats, for example. However, you know, as an adult, I kind of shifted around quite a lot. But I love Wendy Cope, and that's not a very fashionable thing to say, because someone once said to me, dare I say it, a member of our society, said, well, of course, you know, she's sort of a lighter, she writes lighter poems. And of course she doesn't actually, she writes poems that are light, but with an enormous depth to them. And it's incredibly hard to write like that. And I aspire to sometimes try and do that too. So I love her. I love Sophie Hannah, who's unfortunately now switched to writing very successful crime novels, but is a fantastic poet after the same, in the same way. Yue Fanthorpe as well. I mean, I've seen these people live and they're amazing. More recently, Ella Frears helped. Well, she was the judge, and I ran a competition that we run every year in the society, and she's an absolute delight and amazing poet. I'd encourage anyone to look her up. And this Tuesday, Ali Lewis, I loved his poetry as well. So it kind of, I'm not exactly fickle, but I tend to add more and more people to my sort of roster of poets that I like. And I'm always on the lookout for more. And of course, I'm lucky in that I get to meet and listen to a lot of these people live. And that does makes a big difference. Yeah.
Thank you. I share your adoration for Wendy Cope, by the way.
Good.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacques. That question never gets old, because we're always picking things up and always discovering things. So I think that rounds us off for the Q&A section of the evening. We usually take a 5-minute break, but yeah, before we do so, could we just give Janice another round of appreciation for that reading?
Like it. Thank you. So we have.
Sorry, everyone, my connection is quite poor.
Okay.
So I'm just going to pause the recording, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. So that's 20:45 South African time. You can read your own stuff. You can read someone else's work. It's usually a lot of fun. Hope to see you in 5. It'll be 20:45 South African time.